Welcome to Between the Lines, a podcast hosted by former world number one Laura Massaro and performance coach Raza.
We break down what's really happening in high-level squash across the technical, tactical, physical and mental realms and help you translate it into action.
You will hear match analysis, guided insights, coaching demonstrations and conversations with some of the best minds in sport.
But this isn't just about the theory. It's about growing a community of curious players and coaches dedicated to unlocking their potential together.
So if you're ready to train smarter, think deeper, and play better, join us Between the Lines. Folks, welcome to today's episode on Between the Lines. We have Graeme Williams, fantastic coach based out of the US, been in Canada, been in the UK. Get ready for an awesome discussion. But Laura, quickly, what's one thing that really stood out to you?
Yeah, one thing that I absolutely loved talking to Graeme about at the end, more towards the end of the podcast, was actually his take on kind of the technique and where he sits in technique and how much of it is skill on his technique is part of skill, but there's also a big element of like the mindset side of skill, and the technique underpins kind of changing of like the technique can change based on the task, which was really interesting. So yeah, I think you guys will really enjoy that part.
Yeah, love it. And for me, it was really probably halfway through the session where Graeme started getting into details about how he structures the sessions and him really engaging the brain at all times. There's some random things he throws in. There's a lot that really gets the brain firing. So if you want to get those details, stay tuned and listen in. And if you'd like to learn from Laura and I directly, we're launching this awesome community related to the content you're learning here. And then obviously taking all of Laura's experience and expertise and mine as well. And we get to coach you. So if you're interested in that, send me an email at ahad@arperformance.com and we'll give you some details. Enjoy.
Welcome to today's Between the Lines episode. We are thrilled to be joined by Graeme Williams, a highly respected squash coach currently based in Philadelphia. With nearly 2 decades of experience, Graeme has built up an impressive coaching career that has taken him across the globe. He's held key roles with England Squash, developed the junior program from the ground up at Windsor Squash Club in Ontario, and worked with Squash Canada, where he coached the women's national team at Commonwealth Games, World Teams and Pan American Games. After moving to the US, Graeme joined the Philadelphia Cricket Club, where he's been instrumental in developing top players like Olivia Weaver and Spencer Lovejoy. And these days he's balancing his work with a private family, contributing to US squash as well, and further expanding his roster of professional players. Graeme is known for his focus on mindset and holds building relationships as a key ingredient for player development, and has got a wealth of knowledge and some powerful tools to help players at every level elevate their game. We can't wait to get into this chat. Graeme, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, that made me sound pretty old. I can't believe it's been 2 decades. And yeah, just real quickly, thank you to you guys. I've really enjoyed listening to all of these episodes, and I'm a little bit nervous to be following someone like Sarah Fitzgerald on here.
That's all right. Fitzy had some great stories, but she's out in the wild somewhere raising horses now. So you're in the mix, which is brilliant. In terms of kind of leading from the front with top class coaching. So maybe for everybody, before we get started, could you tell us a little bit about your background? It didn't always, when I was looking at some of the positions you've held and how you even ended up into squash coaching in the beginning. Can you tell us how you got into it?
Yeah, so I obviously played as a junior. I was an average junior. I think I maybe made top 20 in England U19s. I know they used to, probably way back when, they used to only publish the top 20. I think I appeared on one. I finally got my name onto that number 20 spot once. But yeah, I was an average player. Keen cricketer as well, and the two sports all through as a kid, they just complemented each other really well. I'd play squash like September, October, all the way through till May, and then cricket would be the rest of my time. And I played a really small club that was a squash and cricket club, so just lived there and just have really happy memories of, like, as a kid, just literally playing sport all the time. Once I then went to Uwick in Cardiff, where one of the main reasons for going there was they had a squash program there. It was Uwick and Birmingham were probably the two main ones at college. I knew I wasn't going to be a pro player, didn't probably have the discipline or was good enough, or in my opinion, not good enough. So I went there to study sports development and play a little bit of squash. And then leaving there, I was sort of desperate to stay in the squash world, but then the sports world, sorry, but didn't really know how or what I was going to be doing. Lots of people had mentioned, or my parents had mentioned, like teaching. But I guess like when you're at that age, you get told you're going to do something, and you're like, no, I'm going to do anything but what you're telling me to do. So I like fiddled around in like working in health clubs, and I worked at some people like Heaton Tennis and Squash Club as an assistant manager. But then eventually I was like, do you know what? I'm going to become a teacher. Everyone was right. So I went back to college, did teacher training, and was a PE teacher for 3 years in Leeds. And then I loved it. I loved like working with kids. I love like trying to like teach them, not just about this. I love like teaching a lot of the sports, but also just those relationships and trying to think that you can have like a positive impact on someone's life through sport was something that was like quite romantic, and I like enjoyed doing that. But then eventually I was like, you know what? Like, because as part of my PE teaching, I had to teach dance, I had to teach and things that I maybe didn't enjoy doing. And so I was really lucky around that time. England squash got some lottery funding and created some development coach roles, which at that time were going into schools and trying to connect the schools to clubs. And so with my background in teaching at the time, it was perfect. So I then started working for England Squash part-time in another club part-time, and I was just able to sort of make a living pretty similar to what I was doing as teaching, but coaching squash, and that's sort of where it started.
Oh, that's super exciting. It's funny how life has a way of almost bringing things together for us. And then, you can make a plan and the plan oftentimes goes out the window, and then you can have no plan and then something
Right.
can suddenly manifest itself, right?
Right. Maybe the funniest part of that story is when I took a job at Heaton Tennis and Squash Club as assistant manager. And at that time, they advertised two jobs. They advertised assistant manager and squash coach. And in my brain, I was like, well, I can't be a squash coach because I've gone to college, I've been to university for 3 years. So I'm going to take the assistant manager's job. And it was like, in my brain, I couldn't see a career as a squash coach. Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, because I'd been to college. And so then what was it, 5 years later, I then actually went, no, I should have been a squash coach. Or that's where I ended up. But to your point, I think like some of the experiences I had teaching, like were sort of priceless in the sort of coach that I've become, and maybe what my skill set is as a coach.
Interesting. So, I mean, that's just such a good segue. When you do begin with a player that you've never worked with for the first time, what sort of things are you talking to them about before you get on court, and how have some of these lessons from your teaching life and teaching career sort of translated into your coaching career now?
Right. I would say that like the big thing that teaching taught me was like planning. I mean, anybody who knows me well, like maybe like my day-to-day life is a little bit chaotic. I'm maybe not the most organized in terms of, but when it comes to work, like I'm like super organized. Like, so, and I think teaching taught me that. Like I'd go out before lessons and put the cones or just get everything set up before I started, because I just sort of, my brain needed that sort of help stabilize me. So the big thing that I've taken from teaching is planning. And it also helped me with larger groups, like just coaching larger groups has always come quite naturally to me because of the experiences I had like in teaching. And I learned the hard way. I remember when I was doing my teacher's training, you sort of shadow a teacher for a while, and then they let you run free with a class. And the teacher I was shadowing said, okay, next week, Graeme, you're going to just lead the warm-up. And it was a rugby session. And this story still gives me nightmares. And so I've got them all in the change room, done the register, and I've said, right, we're going to go out. I've set everything up. You go and do this. If you could take the balls out, and I'll meet you out there. I've literally got out there, and it's like wild horses. They've all got the balls out. They're like all across the field, and I've just got no control of this group. And I'm like, everyone, and I'd lost control before it even started. And I remember the teacher I was with had to like get everybody back in, and it like I was mortified. And I remember after that going to see my instructor who was looking after it, and I said, I don't think I can do this. And he was like, and I said, it's just not my day. And he said, look, go away. Don't quit the I was ready to leave. And he said, don't do it yet. Come back. And so I did. I stuck with it. And I just learned from that lesson, like that now, like the start of my sessions are like probably the most important. And I can be a bit anal about it but I've just got this fear of, it comes from a place of fear. So like the planning is a big piece. But then in terms of like individuals, the first thing I'll do before I work with anybody is like reach out to them, ask them some questions, like typically questions around what would I see when you're playing at your best? Like, so what's your best ever performance or maybe dream performance? Like, where do you see what would I see if you were playing at your very best? What might get in the way of that? So like, what have you learned, if you're playing, what tends to stop you playing how you want to play? Another question might be, can you give me something useful, something that'll help me coach you better? So what can you tell me about yourself that's going to help me coach you better? Like, you might have things that you hate. I hate it when coaches do this. What can you give me a lesson? You like your best ever lesson you've ever had? What was the coach doing? Just trying to find like information that might help me be a little bit more effective in that first meeting so we can sort of hit the ground running. And it'll also help me plan. Like I might watch and see something that I think we need to address. But if that's not even on your radar yet, again, I might, put that to the back. Maybe we need to attack some of this stuff first, build up that relationship, build up this trust, and then maybe I'll attack the stuff that I see when we've got to know each other.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I mean, Danny came from a teaching background as well, as I'm sure you know, but he's amazing. He's so much better than me at organising big groups and just stepping on court with a group of juniors, getting it organised, all getting them doing a routine. And this is my worst nightmare. I'm just so much better one-on-one. And I think that I'm sure that it's just a skill that must be so useful to have as a coach, and that the confidence as well, I think, to like lead a session. I think that's so interesting as well with that kind of first pre-meeting, I guess. And I think that as a player, I can imagine that puts quite a lot of confidence in a coach, actually, because how many times as a player do you turn up and the coach goes, right, we're doing this. This is what I've seen about your game, and this is what I want to work on today. And as a player, you're like, well, I'm all right there, thanks very much. And you don't always, depending on your personality, I was quite happy to just kind of be led a little bit. And then as I got older, I had to take the lead a bit more. But as a player, when you're a bit younger, you don't always want to be told what to do, do you? You're sort of fighting for your own independence a little bit. Like you said, with the teaching job in your own way, you're like, I want to lead it myself a little bit. So that was really interesting.
Yeah, I think one of my main, I guess you have these principles that I can't coach somebody if I don't understand them. Like, I just can't. I need to understand you before I could maybe teach and show stuff, but to truly coach somebody, I need to understand them first. And that might change the way that I go about doing stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to maybe ask the next question there when you said if I change it. I guess two questions. Is it different? Do you approach it the same way with juniors, amateurs and pros, as in like that first conversation? And would you take the lead a little bit more with a junior? And how much are you adapting based on their personality? Because I guess everybody learns in a different way, and you're really drilling down into that a little bit more, aren't you?
Yeah. I think 100%. It's different, but I'd like to think it's different based on how those questions are answered. Like if somebody just genuinely doesn't know, then I'm going to take the lead and I'm going to maybe okay, let's start here. Because I think a lot of people's experience, if we talk about juniors with coaching and teaching, they're used to just being told what to do. Like they're in school all day and a lot of it is like, this is what we're going to do. So they sort of become these passive learners.
Yeah.
Whereas I need you, I'm trying to actually coach myself out of a job. I need to be redundant. I need you to, at 5-all, I can't do anything. At 0-0, maybe I can, but there's moments in a game where I can't do anything. Like, you have to be in charge of what you're doing. You have to make the decisions. You have to be aware of what's working, what's not working. And you see it when particularly with juniors looking out, help, I have no idea. The moment I see somebody doing that, they're telling me they're disconnected from the game. They're not sort of thinking how I would like them to be thinking. So I'm always trying to hand the reins. And with juniors, it's less. Like, you can't give them the whole reins to drive the horse. But I'm always trying to, okay, what are we playing up to? I don't know. What do you want to play on? You tell me. Are we playing to 5? Are we playing to 9? Or, like, just trying to give them. And a lot of the time, to start with, like the kid who I'm working with now, what do you want to play to? Do you want to play to 5 or 9? He was like, what do you think we should do? Just was not used to having a voice. And it's something as simple as that. It's like, no, this is unique. Do you think you can give me everything you've got up to 9, or do you think we need to play to 3? Like, just always trying to give you the power and give you the autonomy that this is yours. You need to be in charge of it.
Yeah.
And I think, when I'm asking those questions initially, I'm also testing, well, how much autonomy have they got? Is it all coming from, or are they used to just being told what to do? And then it's like fixing that dial so that they, maybe I need to just give them a little bit of autonomy, or maybe, okay, they're good at this, I'm going to like really ramp that up.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting balance as well, because sometimes, there's a fine balance between pushing the envelope and challenging someone versus someone could be autonomous and make a decision, but they're still staying within their comfort zone. And I think that's where that external voice in the coach in your situation, well, all three of us are coaches. It's recognizing that and then still being able to give them that push. And going back to your initial conversation that you have with people, it's such an important component of this, because you get to learn what the person's like, because some people might break down mentally because they may be a little more fragile if you give them too much of a push. And then other people, like, you have to find that sweet spot. And I think that conversation, to your point, allows you to start dialing in on that initial sweet spot. And then as you have more and more interactions with them, you develop trust and rapport, like you said. And then you get to know what their threshold is. And we talk about this threshold concept a lot, from the physical side, from the mental side. But even from a personality perspective, just when it comes to learning, everyone has a different threshold at which they can just be pushed, even from an instructional basis or an autonomy basis. So I think I really like your approach. I take a similar approach. I'm sure, Laura, you're doing something similar as well, where you have to get to know people, and then you have to find that sweet spot and then push that threshold up, no matter what it is that we're speaking about. But this is great. I mean, you've spoken about so many things, like the mindset side of it. Like, how do you cultivate that mindset? So whether it's giving them more autonomy, whether it's pushing their threshold of either autonomy, or instead of playing up to 3, being resilient up to 5, or being resilient to 9 and eventually 11. How do you build that with people? How do you start your sessions off to ensure that people are dialed in and then they can grow?
Right. I think, these are great. Like, one of the things I'd love about coming on this podcast is, it's like, I have all these things going through my brain, and it's like to try and like, well, what do I do? Why do I do that? It's a great opportunity to sort of think about what you do.
Totally.
Look, my sessions, and I've just had a session with somebody for the first time just now, and I'd say to them, look, the way I start a session is usually with a challenge. Like, I don't like to start with something simple, because I don't think a match starts with something simple. I don't think it's this start at 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. I like to start with a challenge for like numerous reasons. Like, I'm testing to see what's stuck from the lesson before. Like, if if I'm seeing somebody regularly, they know that I'm going to start with a challenge, and it might be that I'm just doing like a covert recall to see what stuck from last time, or my belief is, I don't know if the lesson before was good until the next one or the one after. Like, it might feel good because we've come off with, oh yeah, it was good, but the real proof is in like the next lesson or the next session or the next match. Has any of it stuck, or are we going over it again? So yeah, I like to start sessions with a challenge. Like, it could be simple, and I might ask them, okay, do you want light, medium, or spicy? What sort of challenge are you up for? Like, might have, particularly with kids, you don't know what they've had at school. Have they had a hard day? Are they tired? So what challenge do you want? And they might say, no, I want a spicy one. And so okay, brilliant. And so again, if they're feeling like that, I don't want to start the session off slowly because they're actually bang up for it. So this is the time for me to like maybe put a little bit of work in them, where if they say, I just want something mild, then I know they've maybe had a bad day. And so like, I'll just taper it that way. Now, if they every time I see them, they're saying mild, then I would sort of like, I've just noticed that you always want like this mild challenge. Why? And so then we'll start talking about, like you always want mild. Why is that? Well, I like to start off, I like to, have a bit of success early on and start. And like, oh, how many matches start off like that for you? Oh, yeah, you told me you think you start slowly in matches. Do you think that maybe if you went a bit spicier at the start of this, it would help you? And they're like, oh, yeah. So it's like, I see it as like a puzzle, or like you're just trying to, I don't like the word manipulate, but I feel like it's like you're trying to like just constantly move these levers to try and almost get what they need.
Yeah. I
What
think
they say they.
I'm laughing because I just feel like like you've got mild, medium, and then it just goes straight to spicy.
No, yeah. Maybe I
can't help but think of like a Nando's roulette plate or something. I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to get today. Where you get the wings and it's like, what spice do you want?
What's coming? Yeah, maybe I need
that.
to add in another one. And actually, that's a great idea. Maybe, okay, we're going to random. Like, you don't know what challenge. We're going to do a random spin the wheel. Okay, we're going spicy.
You're going to have to pay Nando's for like trademark or something, like the Nando's roulette chicken wing wheel. No, I really like it. And it is true because as well, like even with a pro player, right, they could be on the back of coming to you on the back of a bad loss.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing they need is you going straight in spicy. And they're like, do I just hammer my confidence down further, Graeme? Why don't you? It's like,
right.
Kind of really nice, isn't it? To, I think I spoke about it a bit on the DP podcast about how he was always better when I'd had a loss. And I think that's that kind of understanding of wanting to put the arm around, build someone's confidence back up again, isn't it? And that's the relationship side as well, which I've read in my research. I've read a couple of your articles on LinkedIn about relationships, and your bio as well. Just was really interested in your bio, which I'd said in the intro about one of the big things you believe is building impersonal relationships. And I was interested because everything you're saying to me so far is like screaming out, well, that's building a relationship. It's understanding the person. Is that about it in terms of that what you've said, or does the building a relationship side with players go even further than that?
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know, it's like I think the relationship just continually evolves. I think you probably know better than anyone, like as you go through your career, you're at different stages in your career and probably need different things as you go, and I think I see my role as like sort of it's I guess it's like being a parent, or you're just like, like you're trying to like constantly pick up on what's going on. And to your point, what came out, and I guess again I'm biased to these things, what came out with the interview with DP, what came out with the interview with Rod, although perhaps maybe different technical thoughts, players who work with them think, they know they've got their back. They make them feel, the way they make them feel is the same. You feel $1 million. You feel that you can ring them whenever you want. You know that and I think that's so important. I think I could have the best information in the world. I could have that secret recipe to being the best squash player in the world. If you don't like me, or you don't respect me, or I don't want to speak to him, I don't think you're going to listen to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. And your personalities have to gel a little bit. And I think also you're right with certain coaches at certain times in your career too. When you just said that, I'm thinking back to when the 2 years I worked with Phil Whitlock, who was very, headstrong. This is my way. You do it my way. I'm going to ring you 4 or 5 times a week. I'm going to check up on your training. I'm going to, I want you to video stuff, send it me. I want to come away to tournaments with you. And, like in the most positive way was on my case, basically. Yeah. But I think I needed that at that time. And it felt like a leap of faith, actually, at the time to kind of move to DP, because I knew it was going to be the exact opposite. There was going to be no follow-up, really, in the nicest sense of the way I mean. It was like, but when I'm with him, he gave it his all, and it was a lot more relaxed. And I think I was probably ready for that. And I often say, I don't know if DP was the right coach for me if I'd gone to him at 22.
Yeah.
I think I needed that hardness a bit put into me, and that was just my personality. Maybe someone could be the other way around, which is interesting too, isn't it?
I find that so interesting. Yeah. And I think like, I don't know, like I'm maybe my background and into coaching, like, you know, like it's maybe not the way that a lot of people get into coaching. Maybe there's a little bit of, I don't know, like I see in squash, like a lot of good players, like really good players go into coaching. And straight away, you've got that, people will listen to you, that you've got that respect about coaching the game of squash because you were good at squash. I wasn't very good at squash. And so maybe there's a bit of like imposter syndrome for me that I then, okay, well, what can I can't pretend I was a really good squash player. So then I think okay, well, what can I do? I can maybe, you know, that interpersonal stuff. Can I become really good at building relationships, understanding people? Can I become really good at coaching craft, like understanding how maybe learning works, how different coaching strategies? And so I feel that, you know, the way that I approach things is pretty unique to me, but it comes from, you know, what can I be? What can't I be? And I think as a coach, you have to, I can't remember where I heard this, but it really resonated with me. You can copy somebody and be like a poor imposter, or you can just be yourself and be like, you know, be really authentic and really good at being you. And so I think like everything I do, I try and just be me. I try, you know, I see things that I love from other people and try and make it my own. But it's really hard to, yeah, I think, you know, DP, Rod, like amazing coaches, like the results speak for themselves, but I can't be those people.
Yeah.
Like I can only be, I can steal stuff, but I've got to be me.
I think, I mean, Graham, I really like this because you're speaking about performance very holistically, which applies in squash, but also in other aspects of life, because so much of this stems from us knowing ourselves first.
Right.
Right. You know what your strengths and weaknesses are. You know that you cannot necessarily emulate certain things, but you know that you can borrow other things and make them part of your own. And similarly, when we talk about developing squash players, so much of it is knowing and understanding yourself, seeing, okay, how am I a physical specimen? Well, if I am, I have a natural crazy VO2 max and I'm just like a really good athlete. Well, I'm probably going to try to build my game around that.
Right.
And not build my game around nicks and shot making. I mean, maybe if I have both, you know, I could go for both. But like so much of this is understanding ourselves in any aspect of life, and tying it back to what you said earlier. When you get to know people and you get to know your students, like part of that could be is the discovery process as well, because you're looking to understand, hey, do you play a lot of other sports? Do you, you know, what are different aspects of your physicality like? Are you a very thoughtful person? Are you, you know, you're not going to ask someone, are you mentally tough, but you pick up on those pieces through experiences. And I think crafting our approach around that aspect of it could actually be pretty fascinating.
Right. And look, I think like in my experience, if you ask, and I guess it's how you word it, but people will say, no, I don't think I'm very mentally tough. Like they'll tell like somebody I'm working with now, like a young kid, I want to be better mentally. I feel that I break down under pressure. I get emotional. Like it's pretty open about it. I think, you know, I think as well, like as a coach, like by me, I love what you said about being aware of self. I think that's so important for player and coach. And I think particularly when you're coaching younger kids, like for you to model that behavior the same, like you just show them it's okay to, like, you know, be honest about what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And if you're doing that, then I think, you know, like I quite often, like if I'm doing a group session, talk about what the objectives are. And I might say, and by the way, guys, I'm working on this. I'm going to ask some of you for some feedback at the end. Like if it's one of the talking a lot. So I might say, guys, I'm not going to talk for more than 60 seconds. Can somebody give me some feedback at the end on how you think I did? I just think modeling this, you know, we're all trying to get better. I've got high expectations on people I'm coaching to want to get better and do all this extra stuff. And I've got to show the same. I can't be like, well, I'm just going to stand still. No, I'm going to video myself coaching. I'm going to go on courses. I'm going to go and watch other people coach because I need to get better. Whoever I'm coaching deserves me living and breathing what I'm asking them to do.
just going back to that kind of that mindset stuff, and if we talk about that one or two things that maybe you might give them when now you're sort of in the session. So I'm like trying to get a bit of a grips on, right, Graham's session here, we've got the
Yeah.
before, we've got the start, you're in the session, or you're trying to get them going with certain routines. From what certainly having spoken to Olivia Weaver about some of your sessions, she's like, honestly, Graeme had me doing this session, I'm ready to launch my racket at the wall, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm getting so frustrated. And he's like, well, this is what it's going to be like in a match. So talk me through how you put pro players, how do you get these amazing players in such a tangle
I think
emotionally?
I look, the word that I always use is tactical warfare. Like in my brain, it's one on one. It's like a war. I'm trying, and I've got to constantly be thinking and reacting, and in a match, each rally, I take the information and then use that for the next one, and then for the next one. I see each rally as like a little battle, and then the way I play the next rally will be dependent on what's just happened. And what just happened, and information that I'm picking up. So I'm constantly, I always want some element of challenge. Like even if I'm doing the most simple, so let's imagine I'm doing, I don't know, I'm feeding drop drive because I'm working on prep or taking the ball in. I will always have an opposite. So like we're doing this, but if I beat you with a hard low cross court, it's like a game. I'll bring some points in, and there's always this thing you've got to be aware of. I'm never trying to decontextualize the game and take everything out of it. So like if I'm in my brain, the way that I always need a decision, I always need an opponent, I always need all these things that are in a game, because these things are always there in a game. So I'm always trying to find ways to keep that stuff in it. If ever I'm taking it away, it's not for very long. So like if there's no scoring, it's not going to be for very long. And it might be something as simple, this is what we're doing, you've got 3 lives, you've got 1 life. Again, it'll come back to what sort of challenge do you want? Do you feel like you've got it, or do you want to test it, or do you want like a bit more safe? So, and I'll always let players, like, it won't be a timeout, but hey, I need to stop. Can we just do a little bit more static because I've not got it? Or maybe I can stop it for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But I'm always trying to mess with them.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to like make it uncomfortable, because when you've got an opponent there, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And I think any change that I make needs to stand up under the pressure of somebody trying to exploit it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
what are some of the examples of some games? Give me a couple of games that I might not have ever. I feel like you're going to have a few that I'm never going to have seen before.
yeah, and I sort of like, I'll make them up on the spot, I'll plan them, and I won't really know, but I'll just like based on what's happening. So like if you're getting frustrated with something, I'll straight away latch onto that, and like this will now become points. Or I don't think 100 push-ups, but there might be, but you've got to go. So you got to do something, or you got to buy me a coffee. I'm just constantly trying to have like something there. So like
It sounds like my worst nightmare, in all honesty.
Yeah.
like games in a group are, so what I might do in a group setting is every now and again, whatever you're doing, I might just shout out big point, and you have to play a rally when it's just one. So you could be like in the middle of like, I don't do a lot of like boast and drive, but let's say you were doing boast and drive. At any moment, I just shout big rally, and you've just got to play a rally. And then we might move up and down based on that rally. I might shout out, okay, best of 3. So you're playing best of 3 rallies. I might shout, okay, length game. So I'm just trying to throw in some stuff to make sure that you've not zoned out. I might let you, Laura, like in the middle of the session, you've noticed Ad's fallen asleep, or you don't think he's really into it, you can call it. So you can say to him, right, I'm calling my big rally. And so you have to play a rally, and it might be you've got to win, you've got to do that 3 times to win, or it might be you've got to win 3 in a row. There might be conditions in there, but I'm just always trying to sort of replicate this chaos, or you being in tune with the person who you're on with, being in tune with yourself. Like
What I'm listening to is Olivia is never going to lose a power play ever.
Right. Right, and I don't know, like we sort of looked at it like when she played the World Tours for the first time, she was so good at her power plays. I think she only lost 1. She was so good. And we sort of spoke about it afterwards. But it's that sort of mindset.
Yeah.
Like we always say that a point can't be worth two. I mean, it could in that situation, but it can be a momentum changer. It can be, you can decide when it's a big point. Like when you choose that power play, it's a bit more tactical. But if I'm 3-0 down and I'm feeling a bit flat, I know this is a big point for me because the momentum can get away from me. So I'll do a lot of that.
Yeah.
To your point about this idea of forgetting, I think when we're learning new things, I've heard it before where coaches get annoyed, like the kid will come back or the last act. Who can remember what we did last week? And the kids are like, and then the coaches get annoyed, but that forgetting is part of learning. Like there's a really good study about the forgetting curve, and it's like after you do something, you start forgetting it. And actually, the recall in it is part of learning. So you coming back next session and having to think about it, that's how it gets into long-term memory and so actually within a session, if I can create that recall 5 times, so we've done it, now we've moved on to something else, now we're coming back, I've got to recall that. If I can get you recalling 5 times, you're going to learn it quicker.
Yeah.
As opposed to just doing it, going away, and now you're only recalling it once next week. And then the next week, you've recalled it 3 times. Whereas if I stagger it through a session, you might recall it 4 times in an hour and a half. And so that's going to help. I'm not saying you're going to learn it quicker, but just understanding that, not getting annoyed when people forget, like helping kids understand that you're going to forget this. This is how we learn. But like when you do forget it, like, can you be aware when you've forgotten it? Can you ask for help? I've forgotten, just remind me. I sort of like playing around with that sort of stuff. And it can get annoying. I see my job as like trying to annoy people because not all the time. Like you said before, when to put an arm or when to I'm going to try and annoy you. Like I think your opponent is trying to annoy you.
Yeah. I definitely try to annoy a lot.
So I'll try and do that. I'll try and get into people that way and see how they react. And again, it's just knowing who and how and how you might do that. Like messing up the scoring, like creating games it's almost impossible for you to win. I'm definitely going to win. Like, how long can you keep going for? It's like,
yeah. Sometimes it's really fun having those kind of challenges. I remember I was training with, well, he's graduated from college now, but I used to coach him as a junior here. And every time he comes back, we would do, a basic length game, for instance. And the goal was we need to extend this length game for a minimum of 15 minutes. So there are no errors, quality's high. You always want to keep the challenge and then the person dialed in, right? Like I love doing I love everything you're saying, actually. I'm probably going to try the interruption piece. I've never done the interruption piece the way you have, where you'll just say big rally or best of three. So I really, really like that. That's fascinating. I usually try to do things in a way where I get people to play the game within the game sort of thing. So if someone's doing just rotating drives, for instance, then we're talking about not just weight, but we're talking about width. We're talking about maybe consecutive targets. We're talking about, first to 50 within 3 floorboards or whatever it is. And then, if something like the focus and the concentration is a factor, then you up those reps. I remember, I think Laura, at some point, maybe a while ago, you and I had a conversation and you were talking about finishing your solos, and you had to do something like 50 consecutive volley drops, for instance. And when you're getting to 45 and 46, the brain starts going into, oh, I'm almost at 50. And then things, that's when things break down.
I used to do, it was even just like volley drops on the ball machine trying to hit a certain target. I'd be like, I've got a treat in my head. And I was pretty strict with, it could have been as simple as like a hot chocolate that night, or it could have been a new bag or, new handbag or something quite big if it was depends on your mood, doesn't it? But
yeah.
I love it. Like that sort of stuff. And but again, like I would also be like, well, okay, but if you don't,
yes,
you've got to do the washing up. If you don't, you have to I would have this, I would try and have this consequence that basically you got to buy me a coffee. Like I love playing for coffee,
there's
smoothies.
A positive and a negative,
yeah. I like, because I think that just look. I heard somebody said it way better than me, and I think it was a golf coach. And they were talking about trying to train that feeling of the winning the Masters, that putt for the Masters, or serving for the world champs, you actually can't replicate what that feels like. Taking a penalty, but what you can do is it's like the vaccine. When you have a vaccine, you don't get the whole disease, you just get a little bit of it and your body adapts. So what you can do is you can give little tastes of like consequence, or little tastes of, you can't replicate the real pressure, but just every now and again getting the vaccine. Just make sure that you are getting those little moments of pressure. And they help you get used to it.
Yeah, I think a really interesting thing there as well is you can't replicate that moment. And I've even had, I don't know if it's a relatively new thing or not, but even Hania said to me when she won, I don't know if it was Qatar, maybe when she won Qatar, they said for the first time that she'd ever really noticed it, championship ball, and she said it would like totally threw her. Even just a little thing like that, like I think she went on to win it, but she was like for a couple of rallies or a rally even, or even whether it was even a second, it was like, oh, what is gone on here? And they're the sort of things. But what you can train is the stuff that you're talking about, I believe, and maybe it's helpful for juniors and amateurs to just, what you can train is mindset and the ability to flip mindsets to,
right.
If you're aware and you've been through those processes that you're talking about, you can go to process, like outcome, I'm going to win the tournament because someone said championship ball. How do you get them back into process like that? And that's what you see lower down the rankings. It just takes too long. It just makes so many rallies, doesn't it? And
yeah, I think like, I love that. Like, people say, "Oh, it's just any other point." It's not any other point. Like,
no.
I mean, I've never been there, but if somebody says championship point, it's not just any other point. And so I think you have to
You're playing
accept.
for your destiny. You know, that's ultimately like world champion. Like, how many times do you hear someone win a world championship? Doesn't matter what sport you're in. If you're a world champion or a world champion, you can't play and go any other rally. You know, you're about to make your own history for your family and everything.
Right.
It's just,
Right.
you have to
So
understand.
you have to acknowledge what it is. This. It's a very big point. And then go back to process. Well, I've practiced how I want to play big points. Like, going backwards a little bit, when you play big point, people aren't going cross-court volley nick off the return of the serve, particularly if there's a consequence involved. It tends to be a pretty solid point. And so then I think at championship point, if you can play, you've almost got to, like, that if I play this way, I'm giving myself every possible chance. What I don't want to do is play that point and come off with regrets.
Yeah, definitely. Can I just jump in? I had, because my question originally before I went off on one was, so I'm sat with Olivia at the British Open just gone, and she's just played Fayrouz Abu Elkir, and I don't know how we got onto the subject, but I said to her, I think you need to just calm down about the towel box issue. I'm like, she's going to use the towel box. Let her use the towel box. It's within the rules. Ignore it. The ref's going to handle it. She was like, I was fine. There was no issue with the towel box. I knew it was going to happen before. I'm like, there was an issue because every time you're like that, heads rolling, ref. And then you even got told off for just let me handle the towel wiping incident. Do you remember that? I think it was Jason Foster. Miss Weaver, let me handle the towel wiping. Thank you very much. She got to put in place. And she was like, I'll just put that in my cold review. So that, I believe she said, was from you. So I want to know, tell everybody what's a hot
and again,
review.
Lots of this stuff, I'm just stealing this stuff from other people. I went on a course.
We all are, though.
Yeah, I went on a course, and this really resonated me with. So you have a hot review and a cold review. So the hot review is immediately after, or as close to finish as possible. Like, Liv used to just send me a voice recording. Like, I always said, no more than 90 seconds. You can't give me anything that I can see. So you can't say, I won, because I can see that you won, or I can see the score. It has to be like how you're feeling, any problems you solve, all like pre-agreed stuff, what the tactics will be. So hot review is immediately after. Cold review is 2 hours next day. So you just, the idea is the hot review and the cold review are identical. Hot review usually is emotional.
She said she sent you many a voice notes in absolute floods of tears.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so it just helps them. It's awareness of, well, if I'm that's how I am at the end. I probably played the end of the match like that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
missed all this information that now is coming out in the cold review. Well, if I could think more like that in the heat of the battle, like process, well, that would have been really useful, and I could have maybe played those a little bit better. Like I mean, and my sense is, Laura, that you would be very similar. Like successful people tend to be really open, and she's so open, like and it's really good for her to have when she's planning for the next match. Like, just, okay, this is going to happen, or this happened before. I need to be aware of this. It's just more information that I think you can use and build up this information about other players.
Stay open. I think in my experience, they're interested as well for Ahad as to see what you guys think, but I think it's an honesty, not always an openness. And with the people around you that you trust, there's an honesty with. Also, Danny and I used to have quite a lot of discussion about an honesty with myself. So if I can't be honest with myself, or maybe on the flip, if I am honest with myself, I find it quite easy to be honest with you in terms of what went well and what didn't go well, why I genuinely lost that match. I had a lot of those conversations early on in my career around not being fit enough, not being able to take the drop shot in well enough, not volleying enough,
Right.
not being mobile enough. And honestly, Danny was pretty harsh at some moments too. And if I'd not had that honesty and not been able to take it, then I don't know if I'd have actually ever improved it as much as I could have done. So
Yeah.
it's being honest, isn't it? But also having honesty with the people around you.
Well, I
Right.
think there's also this component of, there's self-belief and self-confidence that comes into that. Because if people that are weak or low in self-belief or weak is not the right word, low in self-belief or self-confidence, then they don't want to face the truth, right? It's easier to hide behind that veil. It's easier to hide. There's this facade. Oh yeah, no, everything's fine. I'm doing everything under my control, but I'm still not getting the results.
Yep.
Right? It's a hard truth where we have to face ourselves if we want to get better. And, even thinking back to my younger days, I would somehow tend to pick up a little niggle before tournaments, or, there would always be something that would seem to get in the way of my performances, and nothing deliberate, but there was I was being driven subconsciously by a lack of something. And because I was being driven by a lack of something, I was trying to overtrain or overcompensate at the last moments, and then things would break down. But then deep down inside, as I was reflecting over the years, it would probably happen because it gave me an out. It would give me some kind of excuse to then say, oh, well, yeah, I rolled my ankle 2 days before, or my knee's sore because I was training too hard for this event or something. And I never wanted to face the truth that maybe I was just scared. Maybe I wasn't as good enough. Maybe I wasn't prepared. Maybe, there are these other factors that I was neglecting, and this was my mask for those things. But until I was openly able to be aware of that and be honest with myself, to your point, Laura, and be courageous enough to self-reflect, those things kept happening for years. And I would always blame other things. I'm like, oh, I'm not meant to be playing squash. Oh, why does this always happen to me? And then you end up playing a bit of the victim at that point. And until you take control of the reins, going back to kind of the horse analogy we were talking about, these things, they don't change. And this is one of the hardest things to get across, especially to juniors, I find, and even to amateurs, because so many people are so focused on optics and they're so focused on everything outside that they get caught up in this game that doesn't actually even exist.
Right.
Right. And the only person suffering is us, the person in it.
I mean, look, so much good stuff in there. Like, if I go back, Laura, to you saying Danny being honest with you and how hard it is. Eddie Jones, Australian rugby coach, coached England rugby. He used to have this philosophy: cut, bleed, bandage. So he would be brutally honest and cut you with his feedback.
Mhm.
He'd let you bleed for a little bit, and then he'd bandage you. But he need you. To your point, Laura, sometimes that honesty, it needs to hurt, it needs to sting. But then you have to support. You can't just let them bleed out, and you have to then offer that support. And his philosophy was cut, bleed, bandage, which I thought that's pretty good. You have to know that the person giving you that giving you that feedback does care about you and is going to bandage you up afterwards. Yeah. And then what you were talking about, and you said the word mask. something that I use, and I got this from, in fact, Danny went on this podcast, Laura, Dan Abraham's Sports Psych Show.
Yeah.
Danny was actually on there. And he talks a lot about this idea of game face and teaching players to have this when you go on court. It's like you have this game face, and it's three. He talks about three action-based words, like you at your very best. Like, so it might be dominant, aggressive, relentless. And so that's who I am when I'm in game face. No matter what happens, dominant, relentless, whatever those words are. It could be like, it could be a player who you admire. So it could be, it could be dominant, powerful, asshole. Like that's who I want to be. And so, but my approach would be, that's great, but you have to practice that. You can't just turn that up when you're playing in a tournament. You have to practice that in your training. So like if we're doing, like, again, I'll go back to like a simple session. I think all coaches are really good at, okay, we're going to work on the grip. We're going to work on this. We're going to work on this. But I think we're going to also work on resilience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to signpost at the start of the session. Some of this stuff we're going to do is going to be really tough. And you're going to be feeling, it's going to be hard, and you're going to fail a lot, because I'm deliberately challenging you. But I want you to practice being resilient. What does resilient mean? Okay, brilliant. There's some of the things that I want to see. And then at the end of the session, as well as feeding back on the technical stuff, which I think everybody does, okay, can you give me an example of somebody who was really resilient today? Can somebody put the hand up if you were really proud of how resilient you were today? What did you do to help when things start? Like, just sharing ideas of what people in the group do, because we all maybe see resilience as slightly different. We maybe all have different ways of dealing with things when they're not going to, and we can sort of share some of that, talk about some of that, and not just leave it like at the end of the match, yeah, they're not resilient enough, and then that's it. Like, I think these mental skills, these need to be not front and center, but alongside. To me, they're as important as the technical side. Like, they're just as important, and I think they need to be brought to life in sessions more.
Yeah, I agree, and I think even when I think back to my own playing career, and it was funny because I had a player the other day text me to see whether Danny might work with her, and she sort of said, I'd really like to work with Danny. You were unbelievable mentally to me, and I said, my reply was, a lot of it was a mask. Because especially now, people still judge me based on what they saw on court, and that's not me. But I was obviously really good. I obviously had a great mask, because the majority of people really think that was me. And the number one comment I get when I go and do a camp or I'm at a club, and they're like, "Oh, you smile a bit more than I thought you'd." Seriously. And I'm just trying to think here about, I've never really tried to necessarily develop it in the way that you described, because I genuinely feel like my mask came from working my backside off at home, building my confidence, being completely secure in the way that I felt that I wanted to play the game and in my brand of squash.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big believer that the brand that you become based on your training and the work you're doing at home gets people talking, whether it's people in the changing room that are talking about you that you never hear, whether it's people like, "Oh, do you see that match about them?" It takes a long time to build your brand up. It can also go like that. One poor match because you think no one's watching, and it can diminish your brand. I think the other really important thing is when people start talking about you, they almost make your mask for you. So I remember it was Joey that came up with the Ice Queen. It was Joey that was sort of like, "Oh, you can never tell if it's love all or 9-all with Laura when she's playing," and that kind of. So it's important that people around you are listening to what people are saying, what they're thinking about you, the way you walk around the club. It's not just what happens on the court, it's how you walk around. It's the way you look at the other players. It's the way you are off the court. You can, if you think you're being hard on court and you come off and you're all giggly and, whatever it is for each individual player, not everyone has to be kind of like laser focused, but yeah, would you agree that kind of...
Yeah, and I'd be intrigued to ask you, like, do you feel that you said, like, as people start talking about you in those ways, like Ice Queen, do you then start playing up to it more?
I think so, yeah. And then I loved the Ice Queen. I think it's in my book. I said to Joey, I actually wanted Medusa, which is pretty brutal. But Ice Cream was probably a better shout. And then I'm like, actually, I am. And you start to hear these comments in commentary. She won that rally. She had no right to win that rally. She won that game. She had no right. And then it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
I can win games when I'm not supposed to. I win points when I'm not supposed to. Not just for me, the opponent. Oh, Laura's come back from 9-7. She's going to win. You know, they're not thinking it. They're just feeling it. They've seen it over and over again. So they know. Like, don't let Laura back in because you'll lose the game.
Right.
And I don't think it's something that you can be at 9-7 down, go, I'm going to win this game now for part of my brand. It just has to be, like you're talking about, that resilience that you've worked, ability to stay performance focused at the biggest of moments when no one else can.
Yeah, I talk, and it's maybe negative, and I don't talk about it a lot, but like, I think it's part and parcel. Like, well, how are you going to lose? Like, I remember with Liv very early on, like you're going to lose, but so what are the standards you're going to hold yourself accountable to? If you do lose, like, not going to lose a game under 10 minutes. Like, you just, there's no way you should be losing a game under 10 minutes. So if you're going to lose and it's 8, well, there's, like, so it's just, it's having those standards. And I think based on what you said, it's like, it has to be every day, every session when you walk into a club. And that's why I like, this, it's the brand, it's the identity, this game face. You start living and breathing it. I'm sort of obsessed at the minute a little bit with actors and actresses.
Yeah.
Like how I suddenly, like, they probably have bad days. Yeah. Like, so let's say I'm playing, I don't know, I'm playing Macbeth. I could have, like, my boyfriend or girlfriend could have just dumped me. But when I go on stage, I have to be Macbeth. I have to get into character. And I have to sort of put that aside. And I might feel deep down, maybe I didn't do, it wasn't my best performance of the night, but the people in the crowd would have no idea that I'd just gone through that. And I feel like your game is the same. When you walk through the door or you walk into the club, you become, I don't think your brand, and you might disagree, I'd love to hear your opinion, has to be attached to some of your values somehow, who you are. You can't, like, become somebody completely different. Mm-hmm. Like, it's, that resilient, like, it comes from something close to your identity, or something you can sort of, associate with.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was really interesting, wasn't it? I had what Fitzy said on the last podcast about it comes back to the reasons why you play the game, ultimately why it ties into your brand. She was very much of, at the end of the day, I'm there and I'm going to be an entertainer. Yeah. And I am there to step on the court without the people organising the event, putting the sponsorship in, watching me play. I would not be able to step on this court and earn money and do what I love for a living. You bought a ticket. So interestingly, when you're talking about actors and actresses, particularly in a theatre setting, how's that different to stepping on the stage at the British Open in a theatre, for example? It's like you're there to entertain, get the rest of it. Now, how you entertain is very different. I feel like part of my entertainment was going on there, getting balls back, trying my absolute hardest to never let a ball go without trying. That's, no one's paid to see me quit on a ball. I want to show them that I've got some shots, but I'm really good at kind of making the game look a bit more simple. Always prided myself on being quite graceful with my movement, things like that. Now, if you're a Sal, then part of that's tied into your celebrations after the match. You can only celebrate if you win. Like if you're Ali, I'm sure he never went out to win, kind of like, sportsman player of the year, kind of like 5 years in a row, but that became his brand, didn't it? That fair play. And so that then becomes, I'm sure he would have played up to that fair play side of it, because it's sort of like, well, everyone expects it of him. You can't just pick up a double, can you?
It sort of becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy. You sort of become that legend, as it was.
Yeah. And it ties into your values. Like, if you speak to Ali, he's genuinely like a humble person, right? He's humble, he's fair, he's honest, he's courteous, he's respectful. So all of those things, like, if you ask Ali to celebrate like footballers celebrate, I don't think it would work because it's not part of his personality per se, right? So I think, Graeme, you're spot on. I think the values kind of tie into that. And Laura, for you trained so hard physically. You were in the gym, you were putting in the mileage, you were doing all that hard work. And that's why that hard work translated into your ice queen persona, where it's just, I'm going to go and I'm going to make this hard, and I'm going to get stuck in it, and so on and so forth. And I think that's one of the things that I try to share with my students is, what are some of your values? And Grant, you mentioned this earlier, who do I want to be like? And you mentioned, resilient, or you mentioned aggressive, dominant, and then asal. So who do I want to be like? Who do I want to play like? And then that's one thing Mike Way speaks about a lot as one of his tools in his toolkit. Because if we're feeling flat, but then you suddenly think of aggressive, resilient, and asal, well, then you might step up and push up on the tee and then look to volley more and be a bit more aggressive with your movement. And on the flip side, if you're overly nervous and tense and so on, then it's like, oh, well, let me be like Ali, or let me be like Rami and just kind of enjoy things a little bit more. Let me smile a little, let me have some enjoyment. But again, all of this comes back to not having a facade. I think I was talking about earlier, and actually understanding what's going on. You can say between the lines.
I like it.
I guess maybe just one final question to wrap up, unless you've got anything I had, was just we probably can't let you go as a squash coach without asking you if you do have any technical fundamentals. I mean, we've had, obviously, you've said few coaches on, and I think it's a really important question to be like, where do you sit in terms of, the styles of coaching that we've talked about on the podcast before, things on certain impact point, things within movement? Are there any kind of non-negotiables from your point that you're just like, we can't have that, we've got to change it to this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think one of the big things that when I'm looking at technique, I'm more skill. Like I see, like I want players to be skillful. Technique is one of the things that make up skill. Like, so when I'm looking at like things like, I mean, grip's really important. I think like if you look in other sports like golf, the way that I hold the racket is going to affect how I swing. Like if I'm a little bit more open, my swing is going to be more different than if I'm a little bit more closed. So I think the grip's really important. I think it's important that I think everyone holds it a little bit different. I lots of like analogies. Like I know DP was talking about the bird. Talk maybe about holding toothpaste that like so it doesn't squirt out. Like you want to be relaxed. Yeah. I think any good sound technique, you'll be relaxed. In terms of like movement and hitting position, I hear both, DP and Rod probably different. I see both. Like I think to me it's all about intent. If I want to get on top of the ball and hit the ball hard and have all those aggressive, powerful options, I'm going to get a lot closer to the ball. I think about how people serve. Like when I serve, my feet aren't too spread apart. They're pretty close together. When I'm returning serve, it's maybe the same. Like I think if I'm soloing, like if you watch coaches feed, the feet are close together. So I think it's valid that if somebody hits a back wall boast, most players are going to get feet a bit closer to the ball because they've got loads of time. So I think if I'm trying to get on top of the ball, I want both feet a little bit closer to the ball. If I'm trying to protect space, if I'm trying to hold the middle, if I'm trying to like go out and take a ball early, I'll play away from my body a little bit. I'll play a little bit more at extension. I always think about like for those two things, if I'm going in the back garden to try and chop a tree down, I need power and I've got an axe. If I look what I do with my feet in relation to the tree, I'm not spread all the way out because I can't create as much force. Whereas if I'm like trying to quickly get past something to somebody because I'm being tagged, I'm going to be a little bit more at extension because it's quicker. I just think that if you can do both, brilliant. If I just see somebody always playing at extension, I'm going to encourage them to get on top of the ball. If I'm just seeing somebody getting on top of the ball, I'm going to challenge them. Well, can you play at extension a little bit more? I think the game is so chaotic and so random. I think your technique needs to be able to deal with both of those things. Like if I look at the opening credits for this podcast, Laura, I see you in two different positions. From the back, you've got both feet and you're on top of the ball, and then the ball's way out in front and you're playing the ball way out. And I think you need to be able to do both. And I think sometimes, we maybe, it has to be done this way. I think the best players are adaptable. The best sportsmen are adaptable. I see technique like handwriting. Like we've all got different handwriting, so we've all got slightly different. It's all going to look a little bit different. There's a guy who I really got into. He's a sprinting coach, and he's apparently really good. And he gives a story about on the 100-meter Olympic finals. There's 8 runners. They all run differently. And in a task so simple as just running in a straight line as fast as you can, they're all doing it differently. And I think the skill is understanding what is personal mechanics and what actually needs changing. Like, because, and also some of these personal mechanics can actually be like a little bit deceptive as well.
Bit quick.
So yeah. I'm big, and like if I'm hitting a ball, I need to be able to hit a ball. I talk about the clock, so I need to be able to hit a ball at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably not 6, maybe at 6, but I need to be able to hit a ball at all those positions. Like I don't want to just set up so I can only hit the ball here. I need to be able to, and I think there's examples in a game where you use all of those. I'm big on my technique needs to be adaptable. If it's so regimented that I can only do this, it's probably easy to break down. I think if you look for it, if you watch a rally, like no 2 shots are the same. Like nobody hits the same shot twice in a row. So there's I'm big on variety. I'm big on like there's loads of stuff out there, like this idea of if I draw a circle on 2 bits of paper and they're like, I don't know, like opposite sides of the page, and I try with a pencil to 10 lines, they're all the lines are different. I just can't, a human can't repeat the same motion twice in a row. Like you just can't do it. But what you can do is the start and the finish can be the same. And so to me, that's a bit like the swing. Impact is the $1 million thing. Anything I'm doing in setup needs to improve consistency at impact.
Yeah.
What I'm doing at impact is going to affect the follow through. Am I coming around the outside? Am I coming inside? Am I coming down? It's going to change my follow through a little bit. Everything I'm doing and everything I would ask people to do would be to improve what's happening at impact.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
I love that. I actually really like your description because there's a basketball coach that I would follow, and he would talk a lot about one of the faults in modern coaching is, or in general in coaching, is to be overly uni-technical, you could say, like one style of technique and only one way of doing things. And I completely agree that totally takes you out of context and it limits your options in different positions. And I think Laura you and I have spoken about this before, where if you look at a lot of the Egyptians, you look at a Sherbini, you look at Hania, you look at these girls, and they're really extending a lot. But if you look at some other players, they're really looking to get on top of the ball. But then when you're only doing the one, then you miss out opportunities to, say, dominate the middle of the court at extension, for instance.
Yeah.
And Graeme, to your point, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm like really task. I think the task and your understanding of what the task is will shape what you do. And the example I normally give is like, well, if I've got a massive plank of wood across my back and I try and walk through a door without even thinking about it, I'm just going to turn and so I can get through the door because I understand what the task is. And what I mean by that is sometimes you see something breaking down and actually it's not really the technique. It's just the player doesn't understand what the task is. They're maybe thinking, I think about a lot of beginners, they think, well, to get the ball from here to here, I need to hit the ball really hard, or I need to a hammer grip, close the face. And it's just, they don't understand that actually I need to maybe be able to come underneath it and lift it. If you can shape what the task is naturally, this sprinting coach also said like humans are all move differently. They all move differently and they'll always fall back to the most efficient way for them to move. And so not that that's the best way to do it, but when you see, my question is when I see somebody doing something, it's always like, I wonder why. I wonder why that's their chosen action. like if I'm trying to throw something into a bin that's really close, I'm going underarm. If I'm trying to throw something to somebody miles away, I instinctively go overarm, just because my understanding of distance, I need one thing will help the other. And so I'm always thinking, well, if they're closing the face like that, I wonder why. What is the task that they're thinking they're trying to solve? And it's sometimes just they're trying to solve the wrong task.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like this analogy of like tuning in a radio. Like sometimes if you can just hear, like you need to, so like if they're just not getting it, you have to tell them. Like, look, you need to, you're holding the racket the wrong way around, put it in this way. So like if they're miles away, you just have to tell. But if it's close, it's like tuning in a radio and you're just like making, like sometimes just they're nearly there, let it go. And then maybe it's just guiding a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm always intrigued. Why am I seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Well,
curiosity is huge. And Laura, I remember you told a story once really quickly about one of the boys you were coaching, I think, and you essentially told him to try to just hit the ball into one quadrant of the court. And as soon as you told him that, he kind of self-corrected for whatever was happening. And as soon as you simplify and let the person go to their natural technique, until there's that static, you don't need to make a ton of change. But when that static comes, that's when you have to kind of bring in the external guidance.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I was just going to say the interesting thing is wherever you sit with the camp of kind of technique, I think the really important thing is that everybody appreciates that there are totally different techniques out there that are working. And if you take sort of like even in the era of Nick Matthew, Rami Shaw, David Palmer, James Willstrop, like people and players like that were all around in the same era, they're so different. And isn't that, Power and Nickel, isn't that what myself and Raneem, Shabini and Gohar, like it's the contrast that brings such a loveliness to watching squash. If everybody looked like Gohar and even if everyone looked like Shabini, as pretty as it is, it would kind of get a bit boring, wouldn't it? So
yeah, I think when I watch her, like she's the closest, she does both. Like I see her get both feet up there, and I'll see her like amazing extension as well.
Yeah.
Look, I would be, for me to think like this is the way you have to do it. I think like, you look at the last 20 world number ones, they're all a little bit different. And some of it is
more than a little bit.
Right. Yeah. And some of it is like, technique's an easy one because it's what we can see, but there's lots more going on. Like, what about the coaching, the things that you can't see?
Yeah.
And I'm all, like I said, I think technique is so important, but it's like, to me, it's skill. So technique, decision-making, like what you're reading, like emotional state are all geared around skill. Technique helps with skill, but it's not like a standalone. There's other things that can help me be skillful. And this idea, technique needs to be, adaptable. I think I have like techniques, or I want you to have different techniques. I have to, the ball comes, I might always want the ball here, but what about when the ball has come flying at me here? I've got to be able to, like have the skill to still be able to come underneath the ball or hit the right part of the ball at the right time. And I'm big on like your technique needs to be flexible.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, Graeme, this is awesome, man. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing so many different ideas. Actually, a lot of unique ideas, which I think. Well, I can't speak for Laura, but I'm definitely going to borrow some of those.
Yeah, I mean, look, this has been great. Like I said, anyone who knows me, my brain is like there's stuff flying around all the time, and being able to like go through the process of trying to write. I mean, I've got loads of stuff that we didn't speak about, but just the ability to have that process of like trying to, well, what do I do? What do I do? It's a cool little experience to write stuff down and try and explain it so people understand it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm same as I had found it really interesting. I knew I would. I've spoken to Olivia enough to know that there's some different stuff going on there, and I thought it would be really valuable. So maybe we'll let you just because we also probably I had a load more questions too, but here we are. We've gone probably way over time already. Yeah. But maybe we can when you've like diluted it down more into even more kind of things that you've figured out, and continue to develop great players and more coaching, we can have another chat. That'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be great. You can probably see why one of my work-ons in coaching is to talk less.
I feel like I say to I had every chat, just you need to cut me off. You need to talk. You need to talk more. Come on, jump in. But I get on a run.
Right. I'm the same. I get excited. I guess that means we're passionate now.
Passionate.
We're
Exactly.
passionate.
Exactly.
Right. We get to do what we're passionate about.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thanks for coming on,
Thank you, Graeme.
Graeme. It's been brilliant to have you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Between the Lines, where world-class insight fuels the squash journey that never ends. If today's episode helped you grow, please share it with someone in your squash circle and join our community online. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and stay in the rally.